In 2016, Americans celebrated the 100-year anniversary of our National Park Service, which oversees more than 400 park sites located on approximately 80 million acres across all 50 states. These parks are renowned worldwide as special places and national treasures, attracting more than 300 million visits annually. While national parks are often best known for their grandeur and their beauty, they are much more than that. Beyond the beautiful scenery, parks offer exceptional opportunities to learn about our natural world and about our cultural heritage. As a presidential appointee to the National Park Foundation, amidst the National Park Centennial, I was inspired by the opportunity to expand the role of parks as classrooms and laboratories, and I created a program called Second Century Stewardship to help realize that vision. Since its inception in Acadia National Park, Second Century Stewardship has worked with dozens of national parks and partner organizations to advance the next century of park science and stewardship by fostering a new generation of devoted scientists engaging the public in our work. A highlight for all of us involved in this pioneering program is the opportunity to interact with the talented scientists who are funded as Second Century Stewardship Fellows. In this video, we are delighted to focus on the work of Dr. Bonnie Newsom, an Indigenous archaeologist on the faculty of the University of Maine. Through her research, Bonnie, in her own words, seeks to humanize people in the past by exploring concepts of identity, style, social boundaries, and human agency. I've had the opportunity to visit archeological sites with Bonnie to better understand the nature and importance of her work. For this video, we traveled with Bonnie to an important research site along Maine's Damariscotta River.
I'm an archaeologist, and I'm also a member of the Penobscot Nation, and Penobscot people are indigenous to Maine. I opted to go into this career because there were no indigenous archaeologists in the state of Maine. I do archaeology with and for indigenous peoples instead of on and about, and so that is a little different approach. I opted to apply for a Second Century Stewardship grant in order to explore the archaeology of Acadia National Park. And Acadia is home to roughly 24 indigenous archaeological sites, and many of them were excavated in the 70s and 80s, and little analysis of the material culture has occurred. They've been locked away in storage for decades. The material culture, the records, soil samples, all of these things. And I felt like this was a good opportunity to use those previously excavated collections in order to understand how Native people or indigenous people of Maine engaged with Acadia prior to European contact. You know, we're losing these sites at a very rapid rate due to sea level rise. And in order to understand how to manage or steward those spaces, we need to know what's there. And you can't know what's there if you haven't done the analysis. Within the scope of the Second Century Stewardship, I have 2 Indigenous graduate students who are working with me. And, you know, it does my heart good to have them here because, you know, for many years, I was the only Indigenous archaeologist in Maine. And now I have multiple students from Maine's tribal communities interested in doing this work. So they're doing the bulk of the analysis on the stone tools right now, and they're excited. And you know, I'm excited for them because they're asking interesting and important questions for Indigenous communities. So when we started this project, one idea that I had was to, okay, let's look to Indigenous languages as ways to help us analyze some of the material culture. And so as part of that, the students that are working with me are actually trying to describe some of the materials using Indigenous words. And so, for example, the word for pot happens to be animate in Passamaquoddy, which is one of the Wabanaki communities. And so when you begin to look at it that way, that the pot is actually alive, that changes how you think about that piece of material culture within the role of that society. In another area that I'm working, we have the Midden Minders Initiative, which is a citizen science initiative that has opportunities for volunteers to help us monitor the erosion of archeological shell middens. And shell middens or shell heaps are deposits of shell that people have been depositing in Maine for 5,000 years. The problem is, though, these places are eroding very, very rapidly. And we don't have a good handle on how fast they're eroding or what we're losing. And so citizen scientists can help us to measure the shoreline, to determine, just how fast or how many meters per year we're losing. All of those questions are important so that we know where to prioritize our work. I do think that reconstructing our past environments through shell heap science can actually help us think about how we can live differently so that we can create a better future for our children and grandchildren. Native people in Maine lived sustainably for 12,000 years. If we can target in on some of those lessons and have Acadia convey that to their visitors, then perhaps Indigenous history will achieve a little more prominence.
Another important recent interaction with Bonnie was a visit by Interior Secretary Deb Haaland to Acadia Park for an event that included a sunrise ceremony with Wabanaki musicians and cellist Yo-Yo Ma. Congratulations to Dr. Bonnie Newsom for her important work, including several recent publications that highlight the significance of archaeological research and storytelling from the perspective of Indigenous peoples.
Bonnie's cutting-edge research is critical to us as park managers, but it's also critical in welcoming Indigenous communities back to their homeland here at Acadia National Park. Thanks to Second Century Stewardship for making this important research possible.
Well, I think that it's one of the best ideas I've ever heard, because obviously it combines all the things I care about the most, which is parks, science, students, scholarship, public support of education and science. Let it roll.
What a great idea to combine the beauty of nature with the beauty of science. I think the science related to a park is just as awesome as the park itself, and I hope every visitor can realize that.